Hey, you. Welcome back to Trailer Trash, where I watch trailers and try to talk about films as if I'm some sort of fucking authority. Does that sound like fun? I didn't think so. Since last week I talked about at length Star Trek, I don't remember why or to what degree. Star Trek just came up a couple times, I remember. Fuck me, there's a trailer for a Star Trek movie, I guess. Not a show as far as I can tell. I mean, maybe it is a show. But, you know, Star Trek movies are usually hit and miss, but especially nowadays. But let's check out Star Trek Section 31.
Okay, ladies, now let's get information. I say.
I'm sorry, what?
Okay, ladies, now let's get information. I say.
This is Star Trek, right?
Okay, ladies, now let's get information. I say.
Sorry I keep playing it. I'm just... The fuck?
An emperor can only be loyal to duty. Thus does the empire remain strong. Thus does it grow.
Yeah, you know, we all know Dune's a thing. I mean, it's been a thing for a while, but we know the new series is kind of a big deal, I suppose, at least according to people who are huge fans of the books. They love the new series. I've never followed even the old ones, the David Lynch one especially, though I want to see it because it sounds like it's a lot of fun. The David Lynch one especially. He also keeps coming up in these. Yeah, we get it. You know, the yellow colors, the desert scenery, the sci-fi warfare in Mad Max world, essentially. Yeah, we know where this is going.
All hail the emperor!
Giorgio, you're a tyrant who murdered her own people by the millions. The past always catches up with you.
You're Section 31.
Okay, ladies, now let's get information.
31 is a Black Ops division. Spy work. Starfleet is here to make sure no one commits murder.
What a cute idea.
Who to me, you got some cold.
Is that a gun? Man, Star Trek has changed a lot. That, granted, I haven't seen the J.J. Abrams movies. Or, no, they stopped being J.J. Abrams. It was, whatever the guys... All I remember is hearing about how it was the guys who did Fast and Furious. I'm like, is that supposed to make me not want to see it? Because that's kind of what that does. And turns out, yeah, it was just some dumb, fun action sci-fi movie, from what I can gather. See, that's the thing, though, is Star Trek was always like its own beast when it came to sci-fi, because it was more it was more about, I don't know, the politics, the message behind the stories, especially in the TV shows, not so much the action adventure pew pew laser aspect of it, you know. I feel like even with the Borg, they kind of jumped the shark, because then it was just a war movie, sci-fi, you know, space war happening with stars in the background. Never heard of that before. Granted, I know Star Trek was well before Star Wars, but it's like every sci-fi thing is pew pew lasers now. Like, granted, you probably, if this is a movie, it is hard. In fact, Star Trek movies for a long time have proved it's very hard to capture that essence in movie form, because it is kind of boring for your typical movie audience. But still, you know, I feel like I'm pissing in the wind here saying that the essence of what made Star Trek so cool is long gone. It's very much not think pieces about how life could be, how society could be, parallels to the real world and stuff. No, nowadays they just beat you in the head with, this is an allegory. It's dumb.
Nation.
It's going to be bumpy and bad.
Also, this fucking music. When I think Star Trek, I think this fucking music. Yeah.
You're a bad bitch.
We can't trust you with our lives, but here we go.
Somebody's got to keep it lively, right?
Get ladies, now let's get information.
Yeah, definitely does not look or feel like Star Trek. What about that with Star Trek? Again, pissing in the wind. And also, I've stopped following Star Trek for a very long time, so I'm obviously not the target audience for this, let alone any movies that are coming out nowadays. But still, it's amazing to me to see how far it's gone. This really badly wants to be Guardians of the Galaxy. And that's just not what Star Trek has ever been or ever should be, honestly. But yeah, that's just, the nerd in me bitching about, back in my day and all that. Haven't heard that one before, right? If you're expecting new perspectives, this is not the channel to be on. Anyway, let's check out the comment section. Oh, looky. Freddie Havens says this isn't Star Trek. Yeah, very clearly. Again, I have to specify, haven't been following, I haven't seen the new series, I haven't watched Picard, mainly because I would be big on Picard. I fucking love Q, I love Data, I love Captain Picard. But given the track record for, again, things that used to be good back in the day and are getting rebooted or, another jolt to the heart, as it were, I'd probably be disappointed. I expect things like this to disappoint me nowadays. So never even bothered, but still, has it really gone this far away from what it used to be? Because that's amazing. I want Star Trek to be something my son can look at and be as inspired as I was when I looked to my father. Rod Roddenberry. Wow. That is just sad. I mean, he called his son Rod. Fuck. I need an instant dose of Deep Space Nine to get this trailer out of my brain. Man, yeah, I'm bad as a Star Trek fan. I fucking love the hell out of Star Trek: The Next Generation. Amazing series. You can't take that away, regardless of how many spin-off series you make in the near future. Next Generation, just chef's kiss, right? But then I figured I would go into Voyager. I didn't mind Voyager so much. I always thought Voyager was kind of a neat series, just the concept of it. What if Starfleet, with all their rules and regulations and Prime Directive and all that shit, what if they got lost in just the far reaches of space and have to fight to make their way back home? How quickly does the system fall apart? That makes people bitch about Captain Janeway as a captain. I think it's cool because for once you get a captain who's put in this kind of situation, and it's very fascinating to see what would you do? What would other captains do in a situation like this? Because chances are most of them would, throw the Prime Directive away as soon as shit got real, which is essentially what happens in that show. But not as much as I remember people bitching about how Captain Janeway, isn't a very good Starfleet captain and all this stuff, and she's bad leadership and bad Starfleet rules following or what have you. I'd argue she kind of had her reasons for being that way, honestly. And also 7 of 9. I mean, come on. But then, speaking of Deep Space Nine, I never got into Deep Space Nine. I tried, but then I was kind of burnt out on Star Trek by that point, because it was like Next Generation, the whole series, Voyager. I think I didn't even finish Voyager, and then I was just like, yeah, I can't watch anymore. And then I even tried watching some of the early Star Trek, or original Star Trek, the first episodes of that. I'm just like, no. Because the thing about the original Star Trek is you can't just have it playing in the background while you're doing something else. Because it's just, it's a very quiet show. It's probably because of the era, but there's just so little going on at any given second. But again, it's, you know, the beginning of something cool. It's the beginning of something interesting that Next Generation later mastered, I would say. But people love Deep Space Nine, which, again, I feel like Voyager also is kind of this way. It's just kind of a war show, which it's not. Star Trek isn't. I mean, there are wars, there is conflict, obviously, but that's not the crux of it. Again, there are many series that cover wars in space, so Star Trek doesn't need to try to fill that void. But again, with the Borg and all that shit, the Cardassians being introduced as like the new Klingons, essentially. You know, there's always an alien race that's going to show up and be war hungry and have to fight the Federation and stuff. I don't know if that's supposed to be a message about something, but I think it's more just make it exciting for people, you know? Did nobody get the memo about how Star Trek is supposed to be an aspirational depiction of the future, one we hope to have one day? This looks like a Star Wars reject. Section 31 itself went against Roddenberry's vision. Whoever commissioned this needs to be sent to Disney to think about the wrongs they've done. I don't get that. Yeah, what is Section 31? I assumed it was some new series bullshit. So maybe the point of the trailer was to hype people who are actually into the shitty new seasons. It went against Roddenberry. I don't even... What? They said something about how they're like a Black Ops group, which, yeah, that seems very non-Roddenberry, but that's because Star Trek kind of focuses on one governance of space. You know, it's Starfleet. Starfleet is the main focus of Star Trek. So, of course, there's going to be, you know, the Black Ops groups, the mercenary groups, you know, like war bands or what have you, but none of that has to do with Star Trek, because if Starfleet's not involved, then who cares, you know? So I can see it existing in the universe, because, you know, it's like, you know, with something like Lord of the Rings, like, yeah, you can assume there's more than just the Mines of Moria for the dwarves. You assume there's other dwarves out there and they have their own kingdoms or whatever, but you don't need that explained. You don't need a series to show, like, oh, here's what the other folks of the world are doing. It's just, you just kind of assume that they're there somewhere. But overall, the overarching point to the comments seems like, yeah, most people aren't buying it, which, you know, good for them. At least I'm not alone in this, because that's always fun to be. Yeah, like, you got ones like, so Star Trek is just completely dead. Or this guy who just says, trash. That's what we're all about over here. Hell yeah, brother. A little bit of sick came into my mouth. I have a great idea for a generic sci-fi action nobody asked for and nobody wants. Great, slap the Star Trek logo on it. So there you go. I mean, if this is something you'd be interested in, I mean, good for you, I guess. But keep in mind, this isn't what Star Trek should have been. So if people are pissed about it, don't go crying about, you know, toxic fan bases or whatever, because even the layman can look at this and be like, this is not what Star Trek used to be. So maybe that's why people are pissed and not toxic fandoms. Anyway, that'll be it for that. Thanks for watching.